Welcome to the Secondary Gifted and Talented Screening presentation. GT Screening information. The week of November 13th, parent checklists became available on campus. December 6th is when checklists are due to the GT facilitator. No late checklists can be accepted. This is very important for parents and students to understand. Current GT students may request to be screened for additional courses. That request is also due on December 6th. Students screened this fall are not eligible to be screened at this time. Parents will be notified in early May. It is important to note that December 6th is much earlier than traditionally scheduled deadlines. Most of the deadlines the last few years have been in January, so this will be somewhat of a change for parents. What is the teacher's role in the screening process? Referring students to whom screening may be appropriate, and also completing the academic rating scales if requested, and please return those promptly to the GT facilitator. Placement decisions cannot be made without teacher opinions. Referring a student for gifted services. Teachers, parents, and administrators are encouraged to refer students for GT screening. Any teacher may refer a child for screening, including ESL, specials, etc. Referral forms found on MyKatie. Go to online forms, and then within that select the gifted and talented category, and it will show up. Some GT facilitators also send Google form links via email for campus referrals. Please consider recommending someone. Submit the student's name on a campus referral form before November 17th to give the facilitator time to contact the parent, and the parent time to complete the checklist before the due date of December 6th. The same thing is true for the link if your facilitator sends one out. Please consider referring any student you feel would benefit from screening. Sometimes parents do not recognize gifted traits in their own child. And us as GT facilitators, we do not know these students. You work with them every day, and you are their best advocate at this point. This is what the Gifted and Talented campus referral form looks like. Notice at the top there is a share button, so you just fill it out and then you just click share, and you can send it to your GT facilitator directly. Gifted qualities. We're looking for someone who exhibits high performance capability in an intellectual, creative, or artistic area, possesses an unusual capacity for leadership, or excels in a specific academic field. It is difficult sometimes to tell the difference between a bright child and a gifted child, so here are some different characteristics to try to help you figure out, is this a high achiever or is this student gifted? A bright child knows the answers, learns with ease, completes assignments, enjoys school, absorbs information, is a good memorizer, and is pleased with their own learning. A gifted student, however, is a little bit different. They're the ones asking the questions, and not just any question, those hard questions that sometimes we get stumped by. They already know a lot of information, and oftentimes they can't even tell you how they know it, they just know it. They love to initiate projects, but only if it's a project they're interested in. That can sometimes not correlate with what they're supposed to be learning in class, and that can become a problem. Enjoys learning, but again, they enjoy learning what they want to learn, and again, it can become a problem in class just because they might not deem what you're teaching important. They manipulate information, they're good guessers, they could skip all the homeworks and still manage to make a good grade on a test, is highly self-critical. Sometimes the gifted qualities in students are a little harder to see because they're coming from poverty. There's a book Slocum and Payne wrote on giftedness and poverty, and it highlighted how someone in poverty who's gifted, it just looks different than what teachers typically think of. So for example, advanced language. A typical student might display advanced vocabulary, use complex sentences effectively, naturally uses metaphors and analogies to express relationships. A gifted and talented student in poverty, it would look very different. Limits vocabulary to casual register because that's what they speak at home. Lacks cause and effect relationships and sentence structure. Uses figurative language to reflect comparisons to people and entertainers because that's where their interests lie. Another one would be perspective. A typical gifted kid that you would think of displays an ability to understand and incorporate unexpected or unusual points of view through oral language, writing, manipulatives, and or art. But a student who is gifted but is in a state of poverty incorporates unexpected or unusual points of view through oral language and manipulatives and art, but may not do so in writing. Another one is sensitivity. Your middle-class GT student is intensely sensitive to the needs of others, demonstrates a strong sense of justice, and sets high standards for self and others. But a gifted student in poverty demonstrates a strong sense of justice as defined by poverty, has fairness issues, and identifies with the anti-hero and sees the anti-hero as a victim. Very perspective, but they're still gifted. It's just harder to see. A couple of more examples. Accelerated learning. Your typical student demonstrates mastery and an ability to learn and understand material and concepts beyond the facts and knowledge typical and expected for that age group. But those in poverty, they learn quickly when shown how to do things that he or she considers meaningful. This is what we've talked about before. They have to understand and see the meaning in it, or they might not be invested in it. Sense of humor. Your middle class GT student demonstrates understanding of higher level humor, applies a finely developed sense of humor either through production of jokes, riddles, puns, or other humorous effects, or through understanding of the subtle humor of others. But a GT student in poverty applies a finely tuned sense of humor, creates original jokes, often reflects imitations of people and events humorously, tells stories and uses casual register in colorful ways, and mimics accurately. Analytical thinking. We again have a difference. Discerns components of a whole, determines relationships and patterns and procedures, experiences, ideas, and or objects, versus a student in poverty is intrigued with the idea of planning, though he or she may lack planning skills, discerns patterns in human behavior, but not necessarily in ideas. Meaning motivated. Shows curiosity, inner drive, and thorough independent understanding, asks penetrating questions, demonstrates extensive memory. That's what we think of when we think of a GT student. But a GT student in poverty is curious, independent, asks questions focused on relationships, has an extensive memory about people and conversations, questions issues related to fairness and or importance. Other qualities to consider. Does the student make high grades with relatively little effort? Does the student finish tasks and assignments more quickly than other students? Would rigorous content and an accelerated pace be appropriate for the student? These are all good questions to be thinking about when you possibly refer a student. The screening process. What happens during screening? Well, multiple measures are collected, starting with the parent checklist. If we do not collect a parent checklist by December 6th, then we cannot start the screening process for anybody. So it's very important that those students turn one in by the deadline. Once we receive one, then classroom observations, known as academic rating scales, are sent out to the appropriate teachers. They are given an ability test, which is a nonverbal test. And they are also given achievement tests from the Iowa, and it depends on what they want to screen in. We have reading, math, and science. The reading test also serves for social studies. Classroom observation form, academic rating scale. If one of your students is referred for screening, you will be asked to complete the gifted and talented academic rating scale for language arts, math, social studies, or science. This can be found in the My Katie, go to online forms, category gifted and talented, and they are all there. You will indicate whether or not you have observed certain characteristics associated with giftedness in your discipline. Each check is worth 2 points. Please note that a score of 18 is considered a positive indicator on the profile. If you really think that the student is bright and could be a GT student, then make sure you give them an 18 or higher. If, however, you do not feel that they are gifted or have gifted characteristics, then make sure that you don't give them an 18. Click on the blue share button in the top right corner and email the form back to the GT facilitator. This is what one of the academic rating scales looks like. They all look about the same, except the questions are related to your discipline. Comments on the classroom observation. Comments are welcome and can be helpful, but if you don't want to put them on the form, you can print the completed form and add a post-it note. Your score will be part of the profile that parents receive with their acceptance, non-acceptance letter. Comments are not on the profile, but parents can ask to view any documents used for screening. This is what the profile looks like when they get it in the mail. If you notice at the top, we start with the parent checklist. A 49 on the parent checklist is a positive indicator. Then we have all of the classroom observation scores. If it's a 18 or higher, they get a positive. If it's not, then they get a negative. Then follows the NNAT. A score of 128 on the NNAT ability is a positive indicator. And then at the bottom we have our Iowa achievement tests. A score in the 95th percentile on the Iowa is a positive indicator. The ELA score is also used for social studies placement. If they can manage to earn 3 out of the 4, then they are placed in that particular subject. Let's review how to refer a student. Submit his or her name on a campus referral form by published date the GT facilitator establishes. Campus referral forms, again, can be found through online forms under Gifted and Talented. You can send the referrals to the counselor or the GT facilitator, who can then contact parents. If you have any questions, the GT Parent Awareness Information Session can be found at this link. It is a presentation that you can send to students so that their parents can learn more about the Gifted program and how it works. And you can, of course, contact your GT facilitator with any questions that you might have.